Reiner.
Welcome back to the FutureProof Advisor podcast. Today, I want to explore why having all the data on our clients doesn't mean we actually understand what matters to them. I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but we've all been there before. Scrolling Netflix for 30 minutes. I mean, this happens to me. I feel if we don't have a show on in our household or a show we're watching, this happens every single night. There's all these personalized recommendations of what to watch or what has been watched. And granted, maybe my kids have been watching, so it thinks that I'm my kids and the personalized recommendations aren't there. But they tend to be actually pretty good. But nothing at the moment feels right. And so we just rewatch a show, or we spend an hour or two scrolling and watching previews without ever deciding anything's there. And we don't watch anything. Americans actually spend 110 hours per year. 110 hours per year. That's 5 full days just deciding what to watch. I mean, that's unbelievable. And here's the thing. Netflix has so much data on everything about us, what we've watched, how long we've watched it, when we watch it, what day we like to watch it, who like us in the same area, same age demographic, same whatever. They know everything. And they provide these recommendations, yet they still can't help us decide what to watch when we want to watch it. 80% of views are driven by recommendations, yet 85% of us give up on these recommendations and rewatch old shows. And I thought about this and was intrigued by it because it's something that everybody can relate to. And the gap that is actually there is that Netflix doesn't know one thing. They don't know why we watched something when we watched it, or how long we watched it. They can't see that we need something like a rom-com, or we just need something that is, we had a hard day at work and we don't want to be too intense with what we want to watch. We want it to be lighthearted. They don't understand the depth of why. They're only looking at what we watched and comparing it to what we have watched and providing us recommendations. They have all the data, but they don't understand the meaning. They don't understand why we watched the show when we watched it, and they don't understand what state we are in at that moment to help us get a better recommendation. And here's the thing. Our CRMs in our business do the same thing. They do the same thing. We know that our clients like golf. We know that our clients want to retire at 65 or that their target number is 3 million. There's no doubt in my mind that data is foundational and necessary. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that data is king. But there's also something deeper behind the data. Data is king, but it doesn't mean that it rules all. Behind the data, we have to understand the why. Why is it 65 and not 66 or 67? Why do they enjoy golf so much? Why is 3 million the number? There's depth behind these answers that we have in our CRM, and it's the gap between personalization and purpose. Personalization creates transactional loyalty through convenience. But purpose creates emotional loyalty through meaning. And I believe that it's only purpose that builds lasting relationships. This doesn't mean that personalization doesn't have a role to play. It just means that when we get to personalization, we haven't reached the peak of relationship management. Prime, let's look at Amazon Prime, for instance. Amazon Prime is a perfect example of transactional loyalty. Prime members spend twice as much as non-Prime members. Why? It's easier. It used to come in a day. Now it comes sometimes in 2 days. Sometimes it says it's coming overnight, but it doesn't really come for 2 days. I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody else, but that's what it just looks like. It's just easier and more convenient. And it seems like that says, well, everybody is loyal to Amazon. But the reality is that if another company came out, had everything that Amazon did and said that they will have it delivered in a couple of hours, and it's all at the same cost, maybe even slightly cheaper, then you're likely going to have a flood of people move to this new aspect. Now, to get that to happen, there's a lot there, but that just shows how loyalty is a little bit elastic. It changes, right? There's an ability for people to switch because they don't really have a loyalty towards Amazon. They have a loyalty towards the convenience that Amazon provides. Starbucks is similar. Starbucks is pretty similar, right? They had this rewards program and it drove 41% of US sales. They had on their app, visual progress bars, and you reach tiers. I've heard that people also say this around the map company called Waze. People like to play the game. It's gamified. And so what it did is that what the Starbucks rewards program created didn't create emotional loyalty to Starbucks. I love Starbucks, and if gosh forbid if Starbucks goes anywhere, I'm not going to get coffee from anywhere. I'm done. That's not the case. If they like coffee, they're I really like Starbucks, but if Starbucks goes away, I'll find another coffee shop. What the rewards program created was habitual choice. Not emotional connection, habitual choice. It gamified it to make it fun to choose them. But if they got rid of that game, would you choose them all the time? Starbucks recently, I actually recognized this the other day. There's a Starbucks at a hotel, and I went to it, and they started to write your names back on the cups. Yeah, they used to stop doing that. Now they started to put their names back on the cups. And you know why? Because they felt that it created more personalization. They've realized that the mechanical personalization that they had created with the app wasn't enough. They wanted to get back to making it the calligraphy name on your cup and being able to call you by the name. I don't know if it'll work, but that's what they're trying. But then you compare to Patagonia. We've talked about Patagonia on the podcast and the newsletter many times in the past. Patagonia has this worn wear program where they're incentivizing people to buy less. They encourage repairing old gear as opposed to buying new gear. And what this does is it creates fierce loyalty because there's loyalty not beyond the convenience. It's because of the deeper mission that aligns to something deeper that clients really like. Yes, of course, there are people that like Patagonia just because it's a comfortable brand. But there is a cohort, and it's kind of like a cult of Patagonians. I don't know if that's what they call them, but that's what I call them. Patagonians out there that all are die hard around Patagonia because of the mission and the environmental impact that it has. And kudos, that's amazing. But that's what Patagonia created. They created this fierce loyalty that are customers, that are brand advocates, and they will pay premium prices. They will not go to someone else because they dropped a price on the jacket. They are going to pay Patagonia whatever Patagonia charges. And if Patagonia has to charge more to help keep their mission going, they are going to keep buying Patagonia brand at whatever cost is necessary. And that's the difference, right? Emotionally loyal customers help to drive revenues higher. It creates higher retention rates. This all makes sense because we're not competing on price. We're competing on loyalty, and loyalty is hard to build. And if we build relationships in wealth management that's built on convenience or transactional, then we get into this idea of do we have to lower our fees to keep our clients? And if we think that lowering our fees are going to keep our clients, then we haven't built the loyalty that's there. And they don't have the trust and belief in us. If they are so focused on fees, they can go find and play fee catching because that's not going to create loyalty. Anybody can replicate at a lower cost for a certain period of time. I think that there's the final example that I really thought was interesting was the example around Tom's shoes. I don't know if anybody remembers Tom's shoes. The idea that Tom's shoes had was that anytime you bought a pair of shoes, they sent a pair of shoes to an undeveloped country that didn't have the resources to buy shoes. It was unbelievable. They donated it. It was highly successful. And then now Bombas Socks does it, and a lot of other companies. It was easy to replicate. The thing is that the loyalty was a bit fickle. It wasn't the type of loyalty that you saw with Patagonia because, it was a routine purchase that made people feel good. But you also couldn't really see or feel, and you didn't really know who it was going to. It was just they said they did it, and you think that they did it, and they tell a story about some of the people they did it for, but You can't see the one-to-one. Um, there was just no deep emotional connection, right? And so, like, that reminds me of advisors that may go do, like, a charity event, like, for, I don't know, for pancreatic cancer or whatever it may be. They may go do a charity event, a one-time charity event, and then they move on. And it makes everybody feel good in that moment, but it doesn't create this emotional connection because it's not fed through the DNA of how the organization works, lives, and makes decisions. It's this like one-off decision. And I think that that's the difference, right? You have to build that in. And that's really important to understand, you know, all of this data and understanding of our clients and purpose, because building the right loyalty and understanding the loyalty that you are building helps to determine how you help to create and understand meaning of your clients as well. And that then transitions over to the client. So we talked about clients' loyalty to us, and then it's now about our understanding of them, right? If you have a full CRM profile, I think what this does, I believe it makes us overestimate how well we actually know our clients. We're like, well, we got all the data, like we know them really well. We have all these notes. I've talked to them 20 times over 10 years. I have all these notes, and I think that that makes us feel overconfident that we know them. But I think that there's these like blind gaps that we're missing to motivations. And there's this concept called the illusion of understanding, which then leads to misplaced confidence, which then leads to transactional advice that fails to resonate, right? The reality of it is, and I've talked about this a lot, is, we talk to clients 3 to 4 times per year. That, if we even spend 2 hours a time with them, let's just say for 3 hours, or 3 times a year, 2 hours a time, that's 6 hours. Like, they are living life 12 hours a day. That's half of a day of their entire year. There is so much happening. And you just think about your own life. Like, I think about just like, Q1 to Q2, or I think about like the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I always am mind blown when I think about it at the end of the year and I look back and I'm like, gosh, that happened back then. Like, it seems so relevant then, but now seems so distant. Like, there's just so much that happens that it's hard for us to really get everything that we need to in that period of time. So I think that the reason I bring that up is it should challenge us to not say that we can take for granted that we know them just because we've had, multiple conversations with them and we know that they want to retire and we know about their kids. And, I was just talking to a client, they just sold their business, and I know that they're worried about, do they have enough to retire? And they do, but, I know that they're frugal because I've talked to them, but I don't like, there's still depth there that I could go even deeper on. I can help them plan, but I need depth to understand the meaning. Like, what does this money mean to them? Does it just mean that they just want X number of dollars per year to live on so they don't have to work? Or does it mean something more? But we tend to just stop at that surface, and that's what we spend our meetings with oftentimes, as opposed to going deeper. It's hard to have these deep understanding when you don't go deep in conversations and spend time asking questions beyond just the financial aspect of it. There's this idea that we tend to take for granted. We know it's there, but we don't tend to understand it too well when we talk to families and clients, is that this mimetic preference trap, meaning that they like to mimic other individuals, right? So we are wired for social comparison and survival. So when a client says that they need $3 million, they think that that's what they need. That's what they need as well. When someone else says that they have 5 million, then they think that they need 5 million, but they don't understand that they're actually two different people. Another client of mine that I spoke to recently sold a business. He was serving high net worth individuals. He sold his business for a good amount of money. He's like, gosh, I just don't think it's even close to what these other people have. And I'm like, you don't understand. You have 6x what the average client that we serve has. And what happens is that we build these belief systems based on what we see and what we are around, but it's not built and hinged on the reality. And so our clients, as they come to us and they bring these conversations and these needs and these demands, they're probably articulating something that's a social expectation, and it hasn't been examined. And so we have to talk to them and help them understand. And I've done this many of times where I've talked to clients and they come in, they're like, I don't have enough to retire. And I walk them through and I show them, you have $1.2 million. You're going to get $4,000 between the two of you for Social Security. You're currently making X, and I show them that then you can generate some income off of this $1.2 million. maybe $5,000 a month. And now you have about $10,000 a month. Can you live off that? They're like, yeah, wow, how can I do that? And you show it. It's just because nobody's challenged. And so in everything that a client believes or has a belief on or has a thought on, we need to go deeper with them on that. And that's our job as advisors, to go deeper on them. And that's not found in data in a CRM. Like, there's a difference between data and insight. Data is a number, a fact, or a preference. Insight is the reason, the why, the depth behind that. The true, honest reason. Well, I need $5 million because, my parents, they ran out of money. My dad had to go back to work at 85. Well, how much did they have? And what is $5 million? $5 million enough? Why is $5 million a number? I don't know. It seems like a round number. Well, tell me, because if they start working towards that and they can't get it, then they feel like they failed. But they may be having unrealistic expectations. And so you don't know that. You have to get to the depth of that with them, right? And we segment these clients based off of age or AUM, and we kind of leave them there forever. Like, they come in maybe at 50 with, $500,000, and then we serve them for another 15 years. They roll over a 401k. They're at $2 million, and we just move them up to another profile because now they're a retiree and they have $2 million. But their life changes. And there needs to be these adaptive systems, this adaptive, segmentation. Because as lives change, which is different than their amount of money or their age, but their lives evolve, they should be talked to and communicated with and, focused on solving different problems differently for them. The thing is I always tell the story is that my dad, when I was a kid, I loved Cocoa Krispies for like a couple of years. Who doesn't? I mean, the milk after the Cocoa Krispies is the best part. I'm still trying to teach my son. He's missing out on that life lesson and that life journey. And so I used to eat Cocoa Krispies for breakfast. And the thing is that then when I was 25 years old and I would still go down and visit my dad and mom in Florida, every time they wouldn't ask me what I wanted for breakfast, they would just buy me Cocoa Krispies. And I was like, that was 12 years ago that I liked that. And they kept buying it because they thought that, like, well, you liked it then, so you should like it now. And that's not reality. We change and we evolve. And that's what happens with segmentation and not knowing the deeper purpose of our clients, is that we segment them based on data as opposed to insight. And so we keep talking to them the same way and personalizing the same way, even though that they have evolved and they have changed. We're serving them Cocoa Krispies 15 years after they really actually wanted Cocoa Krispies. And when we lean on static, we feel that it's more consistent. We don't like change. I mean, gosh, if we have an adaptive system that's changing every 3 months, like, that feels overwhelming and crazy. Like, how could we deal with that? But that is the point of client servicing, right? The difference between personalization and purpose is visible in how advisors really use the same information, right? You can use it transactionally or you can use it to go purpose driven. And I always like to use, because I'm a big golfer, I like to use the idea of golf. If we have clients and we know that they like golf and we put it in the CRM, like, there's this concept, which I think is progression from maybe where we are as an industry today, but it's like, hey, if we know that they like golf and we have that in our CRM, then we can send them on their birthday a $50 gift card to, like, Edwin Watts or the PGA Superstore. They're going to love it. And we can send them articles about having to go to Scotland or why they need to go to Scotland or Ireland and some of the courses. And, like, that is fantastic. That is like a nice surprise and delight. And it works for a period of time, but ultimately every year they get a $50 gift card to golf, they're gonna be like, okay, like, this is, I mean, it's not anything special anymore, right? It's a pleasant relationship. It's very nice, surprise and delight, but it's transactional. Whereas you can have another advisor who understands that the reason that their client plays golf is not only do they love the game, but they grew up and their dad was always away at work. And the only time they spent quality time with their dad was on the golf course. And so the reason that they continue to play golf now is because he wanted to have an area to bring his kids to enable him to have a similar relationship with his kids. That golf is more about bringing his family together And yes, he plays with his friends and he loves it and everything of that nature. But the purpose for golf is because it brings his family together. And so that individual, as opposed to sending articles on Scotland trips or sending dollars to a pro shop, can be all about thoughtful experiences. How do I build an experience, a golf experience for my client and their kids to go on? And I can build something different each time for them. That is the difference, right? That makes it a deep, meaningful relationship, not just transactional, right? That they know why they're playing golf, that they're supporting them to play golf, that they're asking them not, hey, have you played golf? But rather, where have you and your kids played golf recently? Because you know that one simple question changes it. It shows that you hear them, you know them, you get them. And that's really, really different. In our recent AI and wealth study, which we're analyzing the data on as we speak and building out briefs that we'll be sharing with everybody. But we asked 1,000 affluent Americans being anybody with $100,000 or more of investable assets, excluding their house. We asked them, when AI handles routine work, what do you want your advisor to do? And here's the thing: 68% of affluent Americans are comfortable with advisors using AI. Mind-blowing stat. Was well higher than I thought it would be. But what they said is that if AI is handling the routine, then what I hope that my advisor is doing is three things. Their top three things: personalized guidance, identifying opportunities and risks, and overall financial review. All three of these are human tasks requiring deep connection. And baby boomers, 1 and 2, want personalized advice that adapts as life changes. And life is changing all the time. You need to have human capital. So we ask, what is our job in a world where AI does a lot of what we're doing? I'll tell you, it's not going to change. Be more human. Be more human. AI can handle pattern recognition. The advisor can handle the meaning making. What does that pattern mean to the individual that I know based on what they have told me about the emotional connection that they have to everything underneath that data? Data should not be driving. I'm writing about this actually right now. Data should not drive you to the decision. Data shouldn't be the decision maker. Data should be a guiding for a conversation. That's what it should be. So I see it as CRMs are decision engines for facts, where advisors are the stewardship engines for meaning. CRMs hold the facts. Advisors make meaning of that based on the conversations that they have. AI can know that a client loves golf, but it can't know if it's an escape, if it's because of competition, connection with kids, nostalgia, whatever it may be. And that's really the difference between personalization and purpose. It's surface level versus depth. And now with AI, you can go deeper. You can get the surface level easier and go deeper. And there's really, I look at there's 5 stages of moving from personalization to purpose, and it's 5 E's. Explore, gather the data, establish, fit, build trust. This is the foundation. Then there's engage, where you have in-depth gathering, active listening, where you're present. The beauty of AI note takers allows us to be present, asking questions, going on tangents with individuals. Then envision, help the client create a compelling picture of their future, what they actually want, not what they should want. What is that picture? Paint it. Heck, with AI, talk it into AI and create a visual photography image of their life. How great is that? And then enlighten. And then verify that the understanding, show how solutions support their life vision. You're taking every decision back to what they desire in their life. And then finally, you empower. You motivate action through a direct link between advice and quality of life. And sometimes we jump straight to empower because we assume that because we have the data from Explore that we don't have to do engage, envision, and enlighten because they've already envisioned, they've already, and we've already talked, so we already engaged and we already know that. But engage and envision are really important to ensure that we're on the same page, that we can go and empower. The thing is that if we skip to empower, we end up building someone else's retirement, not theirs. Because we build this thing that we envision that they think that they do, but they haven't actually told us innately and intently. We haven't questioned it to make the pressure test it. Here's the thing is that how it relates back to something that I experienced is like I'm a data hoarder. I'm a data hoarder, right? I keep everything, and I've built systems to capture everything. I don't know why I want everything. It's just like well maybe I want it and I'll be able to search against it and everything of that nature. So I have everything from notes, research, conversations, transcripts, all of it. And I believe that having the data was the answer. And so I started building AI around all of that data. And what I started to realize was something that was really uncomfortable because I had this vision that once I had the data, I had the answers. That life got easier, things got simpler, things got done quicker. But I found that data alone didn't make anything easier or better. I had access, but it didn't make things easier or better. I had the information, but I didn't have the understanding or the meaning behind it. I didn't have the ability to pull it when I needed to. Yes, I could go search for it and get it, but like in real time, in real conversation, I'd have to go back to it. Now, is that better than what I did prior? Yes. Did I make progress? Yes. That's why I think that personalization for advisors is progress. If you can go from not doing any personalization to just doing simple personalization, that is a drastic improvement. But if you want to get to the pinnacle, it's about purpose. Why does the data matter? What's the purpose of collecting it? How should it inform what I do for my clients? We need data. I'm not saying that we don't. We need data. We need to own the data. We need to structure the data so that we can act on the data. No doubt about it. But having information does not equate to understanding what matters. We must. Now with AI creating time for us, we have to say, well, why are we using AI to create time? What are we going to do with that time? We're going to do more of what we're already doing? And I answer that to say no, but that's what a lot of people are doing. That's why I feel busier than ever. Rather, we should find that to become more emotionally connected with the people that we serve. That's what we should do. Ask deeper questions. Explore in your relationships with your clients. Personalization equals having the data. Purpose equals understanding the why. And I think that what I've seen, what I believe, is that the FutureProof Advisor goes deeper, more focused on purpose. And I think that that's where the future is going as well. And that's a wrap. So I say thank you. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And remember, like this episode, share it with a friend, leave a comment. Let's continue to build this community together. Without your support, this thing would be nothing. It'd be me talking to myself. So I hope you go out there and be part of the change that betters our industry. Stay well, be well, and keep on exploring.